I think I owe you guys an apology. Over the last month and a bit, between my best of the decade list, last week's first impressions of winter, and my glowing videos about Araseki, Bookworm, Babylon, and Gundad, I know I've been putting too much stuff on your to-do lists. And I'm about to do it some more. We're moving right now, you see, and that's really stressful. And I'm also working on a big honkin' video about ReZero that should be coming out on January 28th, but which has taken a lot of work. Between all that, I haven't had much time or energy for things other than, collapsing on the couch and letting Netflix autoplay, and as such, I've got some really good Netflix anime I want to tell you guys about. And I'm gonna do that now, because you can't stop me. All you can do is sit back and watch as I mercilessly add 1 to 3 new anime, depending on your tastes, to your endless plan to watch list. And you know what else? I lied. I'm not even sorry about it. I don't know where I'm going with this. Anime, Netflix, let's do this thing. First up is Carole and Tuesday, which is honestly like 90% of the reason I wanted to make this video to begin with. I mean, I loved all of the other shows I'm talking about. They're very good anime, but Carole and Tuesday probably would have made my favorite anime of the decade list if I'd been able to finish and process it before I wrote that. Unfortunately, this hotly anticipated original show from probably my favorite anime director, Cowboy Bebop creator Shinichiro Watanabe, and definitely my favorite anime studio, Bones, was locked up in Netflix jail when it started airing last spring. The second part of it was only just released on Christmas Day, and I wasn't about to binge it because it's very clearly designed for weekly episodic consumption. Like, to the point that the show's main characters had an Instagram page that updated weekly as a way of engaging with fans and rewarding them for keeping up with the show as it aired. And also, that page is entirely in English. Netflix really couldn't have fucked this release up harder if they tried. But I digress, even though that's still a problem and they're presently screwing Beastars, Dorohedoro, and Drifting Dragons into undeserved obscurity with their stubborn refusal to simulcast. I digress. Because Carole and Tuesday makes me feel super duper happy, and also sad and a lot of other things too, and I'd really rather focus on that. The story's simple enough. A feisty black refugee and a sheltered white suburban runaway fall in love at first jam session, finding a connection that transcends race and class, and they embark on a musical journey together aiming for the top of the interplanetary charts. It's not the strongest plot, honestly, even if I personally like the subject matter. It dips into a lot of biopic cliches and relies a bit too heavily on convenience and coincidence, but none of that really drags it down, because the music and the lively animation tell the real story in Carole and Tuesday. This is an emotionally raw, powerful piece of art with a simple message at its core: that life is best lived with a song in your heart and a skip in your step. That music, or at least music with passion behind it, is a universal mode of communication that can transcend language, cultural barriers, and digital noise to bring us all closer together. And it conveys that message beautifully through that same language. I'm not by any stretch of the imagination a music expert, and I don't think I've got particularly refined tastes in that arena, but I know what I like, and I really like Carole and Tuesday's pop folk sound. You can hear Nye Brix and Selena On pour their hearts and souls into every note as they play the part of the titular duo. Their loneliness, their love, their passion for music, it all carries into you through the sound waves, and I think it's beautiful. It's also kind of brilliant. Not only are the songs catchy and emotionally charged, they're written in simple, accessible English, the world's most widely learned second language, meaning, hopefully, that most of the show's international audience will at least be able to get the gist of them without subtitles, and maybe even sing along. That international accessibility really matters because Carole and Tuesday looks at the world from a much broader perspective than most anime do, and it touches on a lot of current issues in the process. Not always in the most tactful way. I can definitely understand why responses to its portrayal of trans and non-binary folk have been mixed, for example, even if I personally think that the Mermaid Sisters are kinda awesome, sticking it to those stuffy Mars Brightest assholes with their impeccable a cappella expletives.
Oh motherfucker, got that bullshit, holy shit. Oh holy shit, bullshit, got that motherfucker.
It's a catchy fucking song, and those mermaids got pipes, don't at me. From my perspective, the show seems to be making an earnest effort to speak to as many different kinds of people as it can, and I love that, however clumsy the effort may be in places. If you watch Carole and Tuesday with an open mind and just let the music wash over you, I think you'll find it's really moving. I know it moved me. And that's not the only thing worth recommending it for. Carole and Tuesday is a stealth sequel to Cowboy Bebop, and not just in the sense that it's set around the same time in the same universe. Like Bebop, this is an episodic sci-fi series with one-off storylines that explore cool high concepts while playing fast and loose with genre and tone. In one episode, it's a raucous comedy about an AI scam artist. In another, a tense thriller about cyberstalkers. The show's at its most interesting, I think, when it's speculating about the ramifications that AI-assisted music production may have for the art form. As a plucky artistic duo, Carole and Tuesday are obviously meant to represent something more authentic and heartfelt than the corporate pop status quo, but AI music isn't presented as being soulless, necessarily. Audiences in the show connect with Angela's AI-made singles just as strongly as they do with Carole and Tuesday's homespun goodness, and other artists use the technology to experiment and push genre boundaries in really interesting directions. It's kind of my headcanon that Shinichiro Watanabe used his Cowboy Bebop Forever clout to make this whole show just so that OG Bulldog's virtuoso gangsta opera could exist. Jokes aside, it's obvious that Watanabe is very passionate about both science fiction and music, and it is fascinating to watch him use the genre to speculate about the future of music as a medium, even if that process does get a bit navel-gazy during the fun but poorly paced Mars Brightest arc. There's just so much in this show, so much I want to talk about in regards to it, the attention to detail and its direction and its OPs. Oh my Haruhi, those OPs. And then, of course, there's its relationship to the greater Cowboy Bebop cinematic universe, but that should wait, probably. I've got to stop writing this mini review at some point. I just love this show so much, from its beautifully animated face down to its warm, optimistic heart, and I want everyone on Earth to experience it at least once, maybe more times. But if you do, my advice is to take it slow. It's not a super binge-friendly show. The episodes really benefit when you watch them one or two at a time and give the emotions time to simmer, and I kind of think that Netflix ruined a lot of people's viewing experience by chopping and dropping it the way they did. In the spirit of half-heartedly carrying on the report card gimmick from my last roundup video, I'm giving Carole and Tuesday an A+. But Netflix gets a D for handing it in late and unfinished and then emailing the other half of the assignment to me on Christmas Day. Come on, guys, that's just super inconsiderate. Don't do that. I've been a fan of steampunk for as long as I can remember, and due to my time in Taekwondo, I've likewise long found myself drawn toward anime about combat sports like Hajime no Ippo, Megalobox, and the all-time genre-defining classic, Keijo. So it took all of 30 seconds for Levius, Polygon Pictures' new steam-powered cyborg boxing anime, to win me over completely. There's a lot to love about this show. It's got an energetic and vibrant core cast with a wonderful found family dynamic, top-notch CG animation that takes full advantage of the format's strengths, a driven, relatable protagonist, and a compelling lineup of rivals and villains for him to face off against. But for me, all of that takes a backseat to the show's world. We only ever see glimpses of the wider setting beyond Levius's gym and the boxing ring, but the parts that we do get to see are rendered in impressive detail. If you like technical animation, you're gonna dig this show. And those wider glimpses are often fascinating. In the world of Levius, there exists a miraculous substance called Agartha water that, when mixed with human blood, produces a cloud of steam that the blood donor can direct at will, like an extension of their own body. This hypersteam has opened the door to a wide range of exciting technologies, from vehicles to full-blown automata, and many of those inventions are used to fight for more of the precious resource. Levius was orphaned and crippled in the last Resource War when his Agartha-rich hometown of Greenbridge was turned into a smoking crater by the aggression and greed of its neighbors. But he was given a second chance at a normal life thanks to a prosthetic arm made of steam-filled synthetic muscles, and he found a new lease on that life through metal boxing, a sport where prosthetic-equipped pugilists push both their bodies and the machines that help them move to their absolute limits. Levius's uncle and adopted father, Zax Cromwell, is a former boxer himself of the regular flesh and blood variety, who had to quit the sport and ended up dodging the draft thanks to a complication in his left eye. He finds a connection with his new young charge through their shared love for the sport, and under his tutelage, with the help of Zax's buddy Bill Weinberg, a brilliant steam engineer, Levius quickly comes into his own as one of the most talented up-and-comers in the metal boxing circuit. It turns out the boy is something of a genius when it comes to both fighting and manipulating hypersteam. In every bout, he gets a feel for the other fighters' techniques and the inner workings of their minds, and then uses that knowledge to both improve his own fighting style and outmaneuver his opponents. He's reckless, driven to search for something he can only find in the ring, but his all-or-nothing attitude undeniably gets results for the undefeated rookie. Levius was damaged in the war, both physically and mentally. One of the show's recurring visual motifs is the image of his arm being burned away as it reaches out to touch his mother, a symbol of how the trauma of war severed his connection to other people. Through metal boxing, though, he finds a way to connect with others, to grasp that which evaded his reach as a child, which is why he refuses to have his other flesh and blood arm replaced with a prosthetic, even though that would help him fight better. One of the coolest things about metal boxing is that it tears down the gender divide in the real-world sport. Since every combatant is working with rigorously regulated hardware, differences in strength come down to disparity in engineering skill and resources, not genetics or build. Levius has 3 ostensible rivals in this series, and only one of them, the surprisingly charismatic heel boxer Hugo, is a man. Natalia, another plucky young genius and the fastest boxer ever to rise through the ranks until Levius came along, spends most of her time in our hero's corner, and she clearly has a thing for him, but she's also an immensely talented fighter who makes a great training partner for Levius and could give him a run for his money if she trained more instead of relying on her natural gifts. She also has hands down the best trash talk game in the entire cast. Both her dialogue and the expressive animations that accompany it are immensely charming. She's basically Winry with the sass cranked up to 11, and I kinda love that. I kinda love her. And then there's AJ, the series' final boss, another orphan from Greenbridge who was kidnapped by the Amethyst Corporation, a shady mercenary outfit that had a hand in starting the war, and groomed by the company's eccentric boxing pervert leader, Dr. Clown, into a literal fighting machine. God, this show's silly when you talk about it. There's a lot of tragedy in AJ's backstory, but that doesn't stop her from being an absolute monster in the ring. While she's got the edge in technology, her skill is also undeniable, and it's clear from the get-go that Levius will need to give his all and even cheat a little just to have a chance at defeating her. Their bout takes up the bulk of the show's last 3 episodes when most of the other fights are done in one, and it's an absolute roller coaster ride from start to finish. It's not perfect representation. AJ is basically framed as being a damsel in distress with no real agency of her own in the story, but at the same time, it is refreshing to see a combat sports anime put men and women on equal footing in the ring. Polygon Pictures' trademark CGI style makes the fighting in Levius feel fluid. The boxing choreography is intricate and the way it's animated is brutal and believable. While I know it would be possible to make a show like this with traditional means, Levius really benefits from the dynamism of 3D animation. And at the same time, Polygon has clearly been taking notes from Land of the Lustrous to make its non-combat scenes and other things that CGI doesn't do so well feel less stiff and robotic than their previous outings. Between this and Beastars, whenever Netflix finally lets it out, it's clear that we're entering a new and exciting era for 3D anime. And if you want to see what that's going to look like for yourself, or you just want to lose yourself in its steampunk world for a bit, I highly recommend giving Levius a watch. I'm giving this series a solid A-. Of course, digital animation tech isn't only good for 3D shows, it's opened up new avenues for 2D animation as well. And Netflix's first Chinese-made original anime, Scissor 7, produced by AHA Entertainment out of Beijing, leverages the creative potential of digital 2D animation in ways rarely seen outside of the works of Masaki Yuasa and Science Saru, with zippy, energetic visual gags and stunning action scenes rendered in a style reminiscent of Scott Pilgrim. Scissor 7 is an absolute treat for the eyes. And it's a strong indicator of Netflix's general incompetence when it comes to anime and animation that they've barely even acknowledged that this brilliant series exists. Show any animation fan just the intro to this series, and most of us will drop everything to watch it at our earliest convenience. Yet Netflix doesn't even have a trailer for it up on their YouTube channel. In case the cancellation of BoJack Horseman and Tuca and Birdie didn't give this away, Netflix management has no idea what they're doing with their cartoons. And because Netflix is so eager to underpromote great animated series and then cancel them with a shocked Pikachu face when they underperform, I guess it's up to me to champion this show in their stead. You should watch Scissor 7, and then tell all of your friends to watch Scissor 7 too. It deserves your eyeballs, and your eyeballs deserve it. But what's the series about? What makes it so good, you ask? And that's a valid question. I mean, I think the footage I've been showing so far makes a pretty strong case on its own, but there's more to this series than just stupid, gorgeous visuals. It's a raunchy, surreal, anarchic, dark comedy about a teenage amnesiac with psychic scissor powers named Seven, who becomes an assassin as part of a charismatic grifter bird's get-rich-quick scheme.
Badass. We'd be so rich.
A job that it turns out he's ridiculously bad at. That's not all his fault, mind you. On the nondescript Chinese island he calls home, it seems like everyone and their grandma, and their dog for that matter, quite literally, is keeping some crazy martial arts skill or supreme magic power under their sleeve. But also, underneath all of Seven's unconvincing macho posturing, he's kinda just a nice kid at heart who doesn't have it in him to murder people, or when it comes down to it, just let his targets die in front of him and then take the credit for it. Still, he doesn't let that stop him from acting like a scumbag and giving his all to the rest of the job. Using special chicken eggs that are either magical or made of some super advanced technology, or maybe just a thing the grifter bird makes with his body, it's not entirely clear, Seven can transform into literally anything he imagines. Sort of like Hitman meets prop hunt, I guess. It's a pretty OP skill, honestly, and in the hands of someone even remotely competent, it would be deadly, but Seven's a dumbass, so the show mainly milks the concept for its comedic potential. And there's a lot there. There's a ton of fantastic visual comedy in Scissor 7.
Could you, maybe do me a favor and give me a push?
It feels like AHA Studios was trying to make every motion as interesting and entertaining to look at as possible on a limited budget, using each and every tool at their disposal. And while it's more than a little rough around some of its edges, particularly when it comes to English voice acting and general sound design, something Netflix could help with by, you know, giving a shit, that approach to animation makes it endlessly entertaining nonetheless. I don't think this is a perfect show. It has memorable characters, but the story around them isn't much to speak of, and with its, at times, aggressively juvenile sense of humor, it has quite a few jokes that just didn't land for me, but it moves at such a fast clip and throws out so many crazy novel ideas in quick succession that I didn't really mind. As someone who loves seeing animators just go nuts with big ideas, I had a huge, goofy grin stretched across my face the whole time I was watching it. Scissor 7, renamed from Killer 7 in its original Chinese, presumably to avoid confusion with that other black comedy about an assassin with supernatural abilities and identity issues, probably isn't for everyone, but I think if you enjoy over-the-top animated action and zany cartoon comedy in equal measure, and especially if you're someone who felt a little let down with Fooly Cooley's not-so-triumphant return last year, then you're gonna want to watch it at your earliest convenience. I'm giving this show a B, which is short for be watching this anime fast, so Netflix doesn't cancel it. Okay, yep, brain juice, all gone. Sorry guys, I wanted to cover Cannon Busters in this video too, but that'll have to wait until life isn't bearing down on me like a thing that's unpleasant and anime related somehow. I'm just gonna go. Please watch these anime though. They're all real good. That's why I watched enough of them to talk about them. And if you watch them and want to talk about them too, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments down below, as well as which Netflix anime you want to see me talk about next when I do another one of these things in 6 months, or hopefully sooner. Okay, just so nobody panics, we are actually mostly okay. It's just a real stressful month, and we're trying to get through it with humor and sometimes screaming. I will let you guys know if you ever really need to start worrying about us. Till then, though, I'm Jeff Thu, professional shitbag, signing out from my mother's basement.